Jack shit. Jack shit.
Oye,
No pues wow.
¿qué pasó, compita?
No pues wow.
¿Cómo están ustedes? ¿Están bien, mis hijos?
Pues
How's
todo
everybody?
a la victoria.
How are you guys? I hope you guys are doing good. Doing all right ourselves over here.
Listen,
So, we're
This-
going to talk about some stuff today.
this fucked up episode is brought to you by Salvia Divinorum. There's two kinds, right? A and B.
I don't know.
Salvinorum A and Salvinorum X.
Salvinorum Triple X.
Variables. Self-replicating variables.
So, speaking of visuals, you ever notice people, have you ever seen anybody with yellow eyes or purple eyes? It's always just brown, blue, or green, or some kind of mixture of those three, like hazel.
Hazel, olive,
Yeah,
and vomit green.
and it's like the dirt is brown, the grass is green, the sky is blue. Makes me wonder.
Why do our eyes match natural main colors?
Hey.
What are we missing? Clouds, white eyes?
Well, like you said, albinos have kind of
Red.
like this red, like, but that's like a refraction. Like when you look at a cat's eyes, like at night, and you catch that little like red, that little red-eyed pupil, because that cat he be high and shit. You know what I mean?
Well-
feline
So like
toxicity.
in the animal kingdom itself as a whole, is there other colors?
I don't know. I wonder. That's a good question.
I think the octopods do have purple eyes of some sort. What do you, it's not the pupil, but the
The iris.
iris.
The iris, and then we have the retina. Yeah, vision is a trip. Did you know that I learned this with that Mind Alive shit, that everything on the left field of your vision, your right and your left eye, goes to your left part of your occipital lobe, and then everything on the left field of your vision goes onto your right occipital lobe. So if you look at those sunglasses and shit on the Mind Alive, each part of the glasses, there's 4 LEDs. So there's 2 for the left field of vision and 2 for the right field of vision, and they sync differently, which is pretty cool. Like, so you have like you have different sessions with the Mind Alive where you can entrain your brain to. You can have, it's like what happens a lot of times is like the left side of your brain for most people is too active. So like they think too much, they use logic too much nowadays at least. And then the right side of your brain, which is kind of more your artistic, creative side, is more dormant. So like your left side is logic, your right side is creative.
Right.
So you can use that Mind Alive device, which is just like flashing lights and synchronized sounds.
That's what I was gonna tell you. You should describe what that is first.
Yeah. So the Mind Alive, the DAVID, they call it, the Digital Audio Visual Integration Device. It's a pair of sunglasses that you wear, and they have LEDs on the inside, and they flash at a specific frequency. And then you wear headphones that they are in sync with the visual frequency. So like if the lights are flashing at 10 hertz, you'll hear like a 10 hertz binaural beat, because your ears can only hear 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz, so you can't really hear a 10 hertz wave, but you could mimic a 10 hertz wave using binaural beats, which is where they put one frequency on one ear and then another frequency on the next ear, which has a difference of 10 hertz. So you have like 200 hertz on your left ear and then 210 hertz on your right ear. That equals a difference of 10 hertz. So you have a 10 hertz binaural beat in your ears Meanwhile, the lights in the sunglasses are flashing at 10 hertz. So
It's like a sync.
yeah. So they do that, and you can actually activate your right side of your brain to work more, and the left side of your brain to work less. That's typically what most people will exhibit. Like the left side of their brain is going off. They're always thinking logically. They're always thinking like, how can I figure this out? And they're not thinking creatively. They're not thinking intuitively. So that device kind of helps wake up that dormant part.
You're already taking me on a trip, baby. So like, you can't hear 10 hertz, but you can hear a 10 hertz binaural beat.
Yeah.
How does that work? Is it because it's an internal hearing?
It's kind of like, it's real hard to describe, but it's kind of like, you know how when you go to a movie theater and you see like a 3D movie? So the right lens will be slightly shifted from the left lens.
Correct.
And even when they record it, like when they recorded the movie Avatar, James Cameron created like this camera setup where you put two cameras next to each other, slightly different, and like the distance between the center of the lens is calculated, and you film with two cameras, and then you send one side of that film into one side of the lens using filters. That's how like the 3D glasses work.
Right.
So it's similar to that. Like your brain sums up the difference between the left ear and the right ear, like it sums up the difference between the left and the right eye.
I get that.
And so
it's like an illusion that's created by two differences.
Yeah.
But like 10 hertz itself is inaudible
Yeah.
to the
10
human
hertz
ear.
Yeah.
So then how is it like detectable within the human mind with a binaural beat? Like, that's what I'm missing.
It's interesting. I can't really answer that question. It's like your brain makes up the difference, and when you're doing it, you feel it in the center of your head. You know, like so your brain is kind of filling in that distance. You know.
Yeah.
So it's real interesting.
So not only do our eyes flip images right side up, like apparently we see upside down.
Yeah.
And then the visual cortex is the thing that flips it right side up, right? So not only is that going on, but like between the left eye and the right eye, or the left brain or the right brain.
It's happening with both.
So like it's also reversed on the.
Yeah.
So it's upside down and reversed.
Yeah, that's how cameras work. That's why you have like mirrorless cameras are a new thing, but up until then, you had to have a mirror in the camera to flip the visual right side up again.
Right.
I think it's called like candelabria or something like that.
Which you can do with like a window. If you cover a window and then like leave one tiny little circle in the window, the image will be upside down on your wall.
Right.
From the outside world.
Right. And that's how the guy that discovered the camera, that's how he discovered that concept. It's kind of like, did you ever go to the Insights Museum?
Oh yeah.
Like here in El Paso. The Insights Museum, there was this little room you could go to, and there's a flash of light, and it imprints your shadow on the wall. Do you remember that?
Yep.
So it's something like that. Like he was doing something at like sunset or sunrise, and he had that little hole in the window, and he realized that his shadow was like coming in upside down. And so this dude was like, well, if I flip it right side up, I can then capture the image correctly. And so that's when they invented the camera, and they realized that you just got to use mirrors. As far as mirrorless now, I don't know. I think it works with like a computer chip, and the computer chip digitally flips
inverted.
the image right side up or whatever. But it's a trip, man. Audio visual shit.
And that's exactly what we're doing here. Fucking experimenting. Enjoy the mushrooms in the back. Thanks to Art for fucking getting these crazy effects.
Some crazy shit, man.
But that is true. Brown eyes, blue eyes, and green eyes. That's basically all you get. And those are like the three main colors of the external world, the external natural world. Other than yellow. I brought in yellow, like fucking grass. Some grass is yellow.
Imagine having yellow eyes and shit. I think some cats have like a yellowish tint, right?
Right.
But I never seen like purple. Like you seen like when those chicks, like they fucking get the purple contact lenses. That shit looks like unnatural. Like they're trying to look pretty, but it's like you look kind of evil. Like that's not supposed to be. You know what I mean?
So, like along that line of thinking, something I had thought about before was how most animals have a circular pupil, but like the ones we associate with darkness have alternate pupils, such as like snakes, goats. Goats have slit eyes. Cats do too.
Right.
And cats are on the fence. Like, we like them, and they're a little bit of an outcast because they used to eat us, I suppose.
Right.
What else?
Like flies?
Cephalopods.
Flies have like that kaleidoscope vision.
Do flies have pupils?
I don't know.
Look that up. That's
and then
crazy.
how the fuck do they figure that shit out? Like, you can't see through their eye, can you? Or like, can you take an insect's eyeball out and look through their eyeball like if you were them? Like, how the fuck do we know bees?
That's an NFT right there.
Like, how do bees see in UV? And how the hell did we figure that out? You know? That's crazy.
And so, like, the same shit with, like, cephalopods. They have horizontal eyes. Goats have horizontal eyes. And some other fucked up creatures. But mostly it's all pupils. It's all circular.
Right. It's a trip, man. I think, and you know, like, the world is moving towards a more audio-visual place, you know, which I love to see, man, because especially with like this NFT shit that's kicking off. Right now, it's just pictures, right? It's like still images. That's how technology starts. Like, it's just a camera. I can take one picture, and then they evolved it into like moving pictures, you know. But there's that whole realm that's still untapped into with like audio NFTs, video NFTs, and
well,
I know
that's a good drop. You could drop your NFTs that are out there.
Ergo Auction House, man. ErgoAuctions.org.
What is it, Refractal or RX?
Both. So we got some Refractal and RX NFT, audio NFTs on there, but it's on Auction House version 1. They just released version 2 yesterday, or like 2-3 days ago. Which now includes video NFTs, that's a game changer, man. I don't even think OpenSea or like Rareables, all that stuff, I don't even think they have like a legit video NFT.
You can't, because
thing.
I mean, as it is, Ethereum can't store the images on chain either. You have to go to a third party to view your image NFT. Now, here's a question: is the video NFT being stored on the Ergo blockchain itself, like the video data?
No, so when I uploaded the audio NFT, it gets stored onto an IPFS layer. So IPFS is short for Interplanetary File System, and it's a protocol. It's not even really a cryptocurrency. It's a web protocol where you can offer up your computer for storage. And so like you open up kind of like a partition, like a virtual partition within your computer, where you offer that chunk up where people can store stuff. And so everybody kind of stores pieces of your media. Kind of like torrents.
It's like torrents, but with... What would be the difference? It is torrents.
It's basically torrent. And as a matter of fact, Tron, remember... I'm going to make an announcement, guys. I'm announcing that I'm going to make an announcement. Like Justin Sun, Tron cryptocurrency, they bought BitTorrent, and they copied IPFS and made BTFS.
It's very Chinese of them.
Plagiarism.
Plagiarism runs deep.
The most plagiarized, or the white paper with most plagiarism.
That's how we get ahead.
That's not a white paper, dude. That's what we call a copy paper, bro. Copy paper, dog. That's a mirror paper, bro.
Orale, Victoria.
So, but no, that's interesting. Imagine, I was thinking about this the other day, like, the whoever is able to, like, get over all these storage problems and create the first movie NFT, like, full-length feature film NFT, that's gonna be crazy shit. Because I think even Ergo Auctions right now, you can't upload too large of a file because there's really no place to store it. You'd have to opt in for like a AWS or some kind of centralized server like that where they can take your shit down if they want to. And the point of it is to leave it up there forever. So IPFS hasn't grown enough, like enough people haven't offered their computers as nodes for it to be able to hold something as big as a full-length feature film, you know?
So basically, I don't think media like that, video, media will ever be stored on chain? Probably not. Unless our like storage capacity is increased by like a fucking 10x, like cheaper storage.
Yeah, we would need to figure out the storage problem. And if you go over to the Refractal YouTube, we made like a PowerPoint presentation to present to developers and NFT platforms that kind of addresses these issues and puts it at the forefront of their minds, because that is a big thing that hasn't been solved yet. Everybody's talking about NFT this, NFT that, but part of the reason why it's only picture NFTs is because they're small file sizes. You haven't seen
stored on chain other than Ethereum.
Right. And even Ethereum, because everything gets kind of stored on chain, it congests the network. Crypto kitties, man. You know what I mean? So that's what happened with Crypto Kitties. Crypto Kitty, I didn't know this, but Crypto Kitties actually was like the first popular NFT platform. That's why it blew up, because you were minting NFTs. You have like unique identities, like of these cats that get born.
It's like an initial use case, which is why everybody was so excited about it.
The purple-eyed cat NFT.
Which is like why like the original NFT CryptoPunks, I think. Well, other than Crypto Kitties, but CryptoPunks in the new iteration. That's why they're selling for so much, even though they're like poor quality. They're like very digital, lock, low fidelity, low info, low quality images. But because it's the first, that's where all the hype comes from.
Yeah, so if you mint audio NFTs, hit up the ergoauctions.org, man. They're doing some crazy shit over there. They're doing some really
so I was going to say, the first one you guys sold, also, does it like come with rights or like?
No, we put it on Rarible, and it allows you to transfer the copyright ownership of it, and we basically just licensed usage of it. So it's kind of like when you buy a CD at the store, you own the song, but you don't own the rights to the song.
Right.
So it's kind of like that. Rarible offers you that option, but
so if that person who bought that NFT, they bought it, right?
No.
It's still available?
It's still on Rarible.com. If you look at Rarible.com, search for Fractal. But the thing is that like it's an audio NFT, and Rarible has no way of previewing it, so you can't listen to it. You don't know what you're buying. It's terrible.
That's awful.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible. So that's kind of a bad thing about and it costs a lot to mint, man, because them gas fees aren't cheap. It costs us like $150 to mint at the time. Ethereum was $3,000, so now that would be the equivalent of like $250 or something.
This is pushing my brain into a certain direction. There's two things that could really change Bitcoin. One is a device that gives like free energy, or is close to free, like we were talking about earlier. If you have devices that can give off massive amounts of energy for like really, really cheap, that changes the dynamic of mining. So that alters Bitcoin at a face value.
Right, because everyone's complaining about its carbon footprint or whatever the hell.
Because the whole mining game is about like seeking out the cheapest forms of energy, right?
Yeah.
Which is usually renewable energy. Renewable energies are the cheapest. Because there's like no upfront costs usually for like wind or like, well, other than establishing the tower. Wind, solar, it's just constant. Whereas like coal, you have to actually like do something to the source to extract energy from it. So if there is such a thing as free energy, wouldn't that fuck up Bitcoin hard? Like, I've always thought about that, and I've messaged that.
The idea behind proof of work, now you don't have to work that hard to get that much energy.
Think about it. If there was free energy, what would Bitcoin look like?
I think it would make the network stronger, actually.
How?
Because people complain that it takes more electricity than the country of, X country or whatever the hell.
Right.
It would basically, like if we ever figured out a fusion, a nuclear fusion solution for energy, I think that would just propel the idea of proof of work, because now it doesn't cost at all to mine. You can mine.
But see, that's the point in and of itself. The reason why Bitcoin is secure from bad actors is because it's costly to try to attack the network. Number one, you have to acquire the ASICs, so that's always a barrier. the machines themselves like require time, money, space to set up, plug in, run, maintenance, right? That's one. So the ASICs themselves are like a barrier to take over. But energy was like, you had to compete for the cheapest sources of energy. Now, if everybody has cheap energy all over the world, then the cost to attack is reduced. So then the only thing in the way is like ASICs. So honestly, I think free energy would fuck up Bitcoin. And then you'd have to go to proof of stake. Right. And then the other thing was, what were we talking about? Fission. Before that, there's two things that can drastically reduce Bitcoin. Oh, memory storage. So like currently, our memory is like capped, sort of. The innovation on memory and being able to store more memory per 1 centimeter of a chip. There's like a limit. Moore's law, yeah. Limits. Yeah. But so far, Moore's law has not found a limit. Like we keep going lower and lower.
Well, yeah. Once you get too small, you enter the quantum realm, and then it starts acting really
right. So, you know how they say you can store on DNA? Like you can store information in DNA. They've already done that. Mozart's collective works, they stored it on someone's DNA, or a piece of DNA. Right. Crystals. You know how in the movies they always like read information off a crystal, like quartz. If we figure out how to store memory on quartz, then you can store videos on chain. If everybody has like quartz memory capacities, right? So that also would change the shape of Bitcoin, because then you could make the blocks as big as you want. Right. And it wouldn't be centralized.
It's interesting too, like a lot of people think of just Bitcoin as like a financial currency, but the idea of currency in general, like electrical current, recent events, like recency kind of implies memory.
It implies like the flow of the moment.
Right, but it gets stored. Something recent is something that was recently stored. It's like RAM versus long-term versus short-term. So it's like the idea of currency is innately tied into electricity and memory. And, I think that's the big thing that a lot of people haven't seen about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrencies in general, is that it's elucidating to something deeper than just the financial part of it. Because if you think about it, like, are you, like, does your money, and we'll go into this is what's interesting about decentralized identification, DID. Like, if you think about it, you're kind of defined by how you make your money. You know what I mean? What you choose to do for work ultimately ends up defining you, right?
A lot of people, yeah.
But money doesn't define you. You get to choose how you make your money. You define how you make your money.
Some people define themselves by money.
But it's like flipped on its head right now. Like people are taking jobs that they don't like, even though it doesn't match their personality. They're doing it for the money. Whereas the happiest people you find are like, they find a way to make money doing what they like. So their identification becomes before their finances. Like how I identify my personality, what I like to do, I'm going to use that to make money. You know, like I love music, I make music, I'm going to make money making music.
This is our song right here.
Refractal song right here. RX, the Farm Tech, and Mr. ES, the building. But yeah, so like, the idea of decentralized identity, I think, is a predecessor to even finance. And the fact that like it came second is interesting, but now that more and more people are waking up to this idea, it's like your identity should define how you're making your money. How you make money should not be how you identify yourself. Right?
What do you mean by identity?
Like when people say like, hey, you know, what do you do? Or like when you meet somebody and they ask you the question, who are you? What do you do?
That's a weird question.
It's like, well, I do this for work. Your mind kind of instantly jumps to that conclusion. Like you go out to the bar, you talk to a girl or whatever, vice versa for females, whatever. You talk to a guy, like that's one of the first questions you're gonna ask is like, well, what do you do? And so it's like, well, I'm a banker, or I work at the mall, I'm a retail, this, I'm an investor, this and that. So like your identity is tied to how you make money. But a lot of people are working backwards. They're just getting whatever job and allowing the money to define them instead of looking within and saying, this is what I do, this is what I like, that's how I'm going to make my money.
That's interesting.
So like the idea of decentralized identification is super important because like that goes beyond your finances even, like that defines who you are. And if you're making money doing something else, you're not really happy.
Plugging myself into what you were just saying, it's like I always took shitty, crappy jobs, but I was very disciplined to like save to get to a point where I'm at now, where like I'm unemployed, but I have no need for money, and I can then devote all my time and effort into like manifesting the things that I've always wanted to manifest. I have all day to do whatever I want, and as long as you're dedicated with your time, because like people could definitely squander their waking hours. That's one thing that I'm disciplining myself further and further. Always be busy, like try to stay busy, accomplishing shit. But now I can work on the music that I never had time for. I don't know how you did it. You've always found a way to work on music even though you've had like jobs the whole time. The job would always take so much time and stress and mental power away from like the creative process that on the weekend is like all the free time I had, and I wouldn't be in the mood by then. Yeah. So like not having the job is like whenever the moment strikes.
What goes back to what we were saying, like the left brain, right brain shit. Like the job kind of in a modern day society, the job kind of keeps you trapped in your left brain. You don't get to awaken the right brain very much. You have to find ways to awaken that side of yourself. And devices like the Mind Alive or you synchronize audio visual type shit, that will help awaken that. And so for me, it's always been movies, man. I go home, I watch a movie, I let the movie inspire me. But what is a movie? It's synchronized audio and visual.
And it's like hypnotizing you, because the movie allows your conscious mind to relax.
Yeah.
So that's tying into me about like psychedelics. We always feel like psychedelics are amplifying some part of ourselves, but the research has shown that really there's signals that are being depressed by the psychedelics. Like your thinking mind gets suppressed, and that's why we have those emotional feelings like ecstasy and shit like that too. Like the inhibition gets suppressed, and so you're allowed to feel all those things that you don't allow yourself to feel.
Well, really, what the mind is a filter. So you have, the unconscious, the subconscious, and the conscious. The unconscious is like the completely unfiltered, just take it all in. But you're receiving like idea of that. Like he says, the brain takes in 6 billion signals per second, most of which are hidden and not given to the senses. Like your eyes picking up all this stuff, your ears are picking up all this stuff, you're feeling tactile, sensory data and smell and taste at all times, but you can't focus on all that. So then the subconscious layer kind of filters it, and then your conscious layer just prioritizes it. It's kind of like sort and list, like when you do computer coding. It's like you have this big giant list of shit that's just entering, and then you have to find out how to sort that list, how to merge the list, how to prioritize the list. I mean, that's computer 101, but that comes from how our brain works. And obviously, like how Marshall McLuhan used to say, like the medium is the message, the wheel is an extension of the foot, the computer is an extension of the mind, right? Or the computer is an extension of the physical brain. The internet is like an extension of the collective unconscious.
Right. So I'll pose this to you. So in that line of thinking of Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. What new mediums are reflecting something else that, because we have these inventions of like what's the latest invention? Blockchain, okay. I don't think you can really tie that to a connector. The wheel is the extension of the foot. The computer is obvious, but what other new things are extensions that we haven't, that Marshall McLuhan is unaware of, was never aware of in his lifetime?
Well, it's interesting because it's almost like we are now externalizing the entire world with the metaverse. So if you've seen Ready Player One, for those that aren't hip to crypto and all that stuff, if you've seen the movie Ready Player One, that was the whole idea, is like creating an interconnected VR world Because right now, VR world isn't interconnected. It's like you can plug in.
There's like silos.
Yeah, so you got your PS4, your VR headset, and you play your game on your system. You can't do like GTA Online in VR yet. That's what the Metaverse is going to be. Is like a GTA Online
First person.
but where you can interact and my world agrees with your world, and that's what blockchain is. It's kind of like right now we can't get our worlds to agree with each other yet because the sequence of things. So like there's the idea of that's why NFTs are so important, because I like to use the example of
they're like anchor points. They're like vectors or points on a graph that like are concrete, like atoms versus the wave.
Right.
Whereas the line of the wave, which isn't defined fully other than the points, is the continuum. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, yeah, like along the lines of what you were saying, like the wormhole. That's the theme of the day right now. It's a sequence of events. We all have to agree on the sequence of events. So like, I use the idea of like the sword and the stone. You know, the first dude to pull the sword from the stone, everybody has to agree, at least within the game realm, that that's the first dude that pulled the sword from the stone, and he has it, and that you won't get a double spend. Because that's the whole thing behind Bitcoin, is like a double spend, that like you write the same check twice, you spend the same money twice, which could imply like you're using the same object twice, even though there's only one object.
Right.
So
you need ordering.
Right.
Ordering is key.
Ordering a sequence of events within a world of objects, and whether it be virtual objects or, because that's how the world really works. There's this idea of like object permanence, that when you wake up in the morning, you know that if you drank a beer yesterday and you threw that can in the trash can, it's going to be there tomorrow. You know, there's object permanence in the world. So the NFTs are a way, and blockchain is a way for us to establish object permanence within the virtual world, to order a sequence of events to say that, hey, this dude was the first guy to pull the sword in the stone. He's the only one that has it. Nobody else has it. If you want that sword, you now have to buy it from them.
Right.
And that's what NFTs are. That's what the most...
Right.
Like,
that's also the problem that's happening with like Cardano, is like the concurrency issue, a way to order transactions and events when there's multiple orderers, I guess you would say. So like the sequence that transactions fall into is key to blockchains, and I think Cardano has that problem right now. Is how do we get order when there's multiple people trying to do the same thing at the same time? How do we determine who was first?
Right.
Because it changes the state, right? Like two transactions come in on an exchange, they both want to buy, they reached at the exact same moment. One of them has to be chosen first, and that changes the price of the second person.
Yeah.
So
because the way the order book works. There's a really interesting movie actually that covers that. I forget what it's called, but it has the dude that played Mark Zuckerberg in the Facebook movie, Lex Luthor, the worst Lex Luthor of all time. Sorry, I'm just gonna put it out there. That dude, he came out in a movie about like the stock market in like the early 90s when the internet popped up. Like there was this race to see who could get price feeds faster than anybody else, and that race is actually how fiber optics became invented, because at the time it was like, well, you know, they were trying to do wireless solutions, but there's dropouts and interference and stuff like that, so they figured, well, the best way to do it is to tie a cable from point A to point B. But how do you tie a cable from LA to New York, from, you know, New York to Tokyo and shit like that, to get updated price feeds? So like the whole movie was about this dude, he goes on a venture literally just to save 2 seconds of time on his price feed. Like,
yes,
like the New York Stock Exchange gets price updates within 16 seconds, you know, from Tokyo to New York and shit like that.
Check this. The closer you move to the servers, the more updated price feeds you get. So like every big hedge fund that was relying on that information moved closer and closer and closer to the servers, pulling the land value of all the surrounding area like through the roof, because all these rich motherfuckers were trying to get closer and closer. And if the land is already bought up, you get the next.
Yeah, because if your server is down the block and your computer's right there, you're gonna get price feeds within a second, you know. And at the time, it was like, you know, before the internet really took off, it was like to get a price feed in New Jersey from New York, that's going to take like 16 seconds or
So
something
another
like that.
guy closer could already put his bid in
Right.
before you, get what you were trying to get, and then...
So the whole movie was about how this dude, literally just to go from 16 seconds to 14 seconds, spent like millions of dollars just to connect a fiber optic cable from New York to New Jersey or some shit like that. I probably got the cities wrong, but like that's the concept
It works.
of it. Like,
The same
and then
thing
now
is
we
going
got
to
fiber
happen.
optics.
The same thing is going to happen with blockchain, because you want to be where the cheapest energy is. So there's going to be a race for cheaper and cheaper and cheaper energy. And right now, China subsidizes their energy, but they banned Bitcoin. So now it's the second, like who has the second cheapest energy.
Right.
And
Hey, can I trade you spots real quick?
yeah,
All right. So we'll trade to balance it out. All right.
cozy.
All right. There we go. I'm a avatar creature. Yeah, no, that shit's it's nuts, man.
So the same energy race is going to happen in the blockchain world too. Like who can get the fastest ASICs, who can get the cheapest power, and that's going to drive up prices. So like a bunch of mining is moving to America and Texas, and then Elon Musk moved to Texas too. So like that Austin real estate is going to be popping. And there is a mining company in El Paso, like in the outskirts of El Paso somewhere
Really?
near here. I forget what it's called, but I looked it up and I like checked their website out.
That's crazy.
They have a mining operation, and then in Austin they have a big mining operation, which is weird because that's where all the mind power is going. Brain drain. The brain drain is going from Silicon Valley and Wall Street into blockchain, and the hubs are Miami and Austin right now.
Right. Yeah, man. Joe Rogan and Elon Musk created a whole migration. Hey, cheers to all the motherfuckers watching this. I know nobody's watching it live, but
You have your Hennessy. We should at least drink half of this.
let's do some Hennessy shots for the crowd.
Successful experimentation. This looks crazy, dog.
Cheers, mate.
We just need somebody like diddling with the parameters.
Yeah, I'm surprised not a lot of people have experimented with new ways of exploring visual territory in the podcast realm. That's what we're doing right here, man. So anyways, yeah, so like going back into the VR thing, tying into the whole concept of what we're talking about here, like movie theaters are starting to wane down more and more. I notice now that you got like the view at home shit, HBO Max, you know, Disney, you can buy it at home, or you can go to the theater, and you know, it's cheaper to do it at home because you can pay $30. Everybody comes to the crib, watches it, you make food there. Whereas if you go to the theater with 4 people, you're already gonna pay like $60-70. So
Right.
that's shifting the landscape to
External world to more home localized shit.
right. But also, there's starting to be more VR theaters.
Right.
You know, they got one in Dallas, which hopefully we get to go see soon. There's a few of them. There's only about like maybe 10, 20 of them, and you know, popular ones in the world right now. And you can go to a VR theater, and it's an interactive movie, you know, where you can go and play with your friends, and they have like it's like a movie / game. It's like laser tag meets the movie theater, where like you can go in and you play a zombie movie, but you're in the movie, and your choices influence the movie. And I see that becoming much more popular in the next few years, especially with the metaverse evolving. And it's funny because I always thought about it like back in the day, like the idea of a trip house, something that you can do under the influence of entheogens, not just anything, entheogens in particularly, because sometimes being stuck in the home gets it's kind of
Your four walls become like a prison.
right. And then
So
sometimes
you
being
need
in
an escape.
nature is a little bit, for me, I've always had a good time, but for some people, they flip out and then they'll just go and lose themselves and then literally get lost in the woods and they can't find their way back type of shit, right? So the idea of like a trip house where you have like a VR type theater, but you have sitters, you have people there like monitoring, making sure that if you flip out, you have somebody there to anchor you back and like.
Right.
So I do see like in the future, as entheogens start to become more commonplace and mainstream, that's going to be a concept, and it hasn't really quite happened yet. But with the metaverse and with VR and the theaters waning down, like it's going to be, in my opinion, it's going to be one of the next big things. Like investors are going to start, operating these trip houses and stuff like that, where people can go. They take some, what do they call those? Truffles. Like truffles are illegal in a lot of places in the world right now.
Right.
But they will give you a little bit of a buzz.
Fuck yeah. You can trip hard on them.
So you get truffles, but you go to a truffle house, and at the truffle house, it's like a VR thing. You have a beds and shit where you can go and calm people down. You got sitters, stuff like that, and I don't know. I always envision that.
Crazy that you're saying that, because like they have therapy, they have ketamine therapy, and they have MDMA therapy. So you get a therapist and you get like a trip sitter sort of also who hangs around. And so you have a doctor who like knows medics, and then you have like a therapist. And so that's becoming popular, MDMA and ketamine. But to go into, so when you say house, is it like a factory, like a giant building?
Like a theater.
So
literally like a theater.
How many people would be like tripping at the same time, do you think?
I think it would have to be heavily regulated for sure, and then dosage would have to be monitored. Like you would have to like before.
But what would you do in there? Just like go on a virtual adventure?
Yeah. A virtual adventure, but you're being monitored, and then dosages are highly controlled. So you're not allowed to come to the place already tripping. You have to like take it there, and then somebody there monitors how much, and they're able to keep track of you type of shit. Like, and I mean, we're years away from this obviously, but in places like Amsterdam, places like some places in the Netherlands and stuff like that where truffles are legal, that's kind of, I could see that already being a thing. It just, society has to catch up. And
well, it's happening fast, because like marijuana has, like, from our childhood to today, marijuana has gained so much acceptance. I remember hiding marijuana usage like my whole life, and like it being associated with criminals. The only place you got it was like shady motherfuckers, right? And then now you got all these establishments that are giving good weed, so the acceptance has grown. And then like you realize your older family that you hid it from all the time, now they're starting to delve in, and you're the Sherpa for the people that are barely getting high for the first time. I'm trying to get my mom on some fucking edibles to sleep, trying to tell her to just take one, then take two. So the acceptance is growing faster than ever before. So psychedelics is right around the corner. And then Oregon legalizing psychedelics, I don't know if that's a good move or bad move, honestly, because they got a lot of crazies out there. But I'm into it, and I'm into the multiverse, and I'm into the time fucking gods, the time clock arrangers from the Eternals.
Man. Yeah, Marvel is they're starting to really tap into that shit, man. I'm happy. I'm glad with the
Dude,
What If and the Loki and the Eternals.
I'm so far behind. I'm still behind. I never saw the last Avengers where Tony Stark dies or whatever.
Yeah.
I still haven't seen Thanos on the screen.
You never saw Infinity War?
No.
You didn't see Infinity War?
No, dude. So I'm like way behind, because like I haven't even seen Doctor Strange.
Wow.
Which you said was like one of the greatest psychedelic things.
That is
you could watch that shit
crazy.
On Psychedelics.
You're gonna love that shit.
Yeah.
Part 2's almost ready, dude. Damn.
Yeah, I know.
It's all gonna get tied in together, dude. It's really cool how they're bringing in magic, spirituality, time, physics, quantum, phenomena all together. Like, yeah, dude, Marvel is really up in the game on that shit, man. Love it or hate it, you gotta respect it, man. The Eternals, dude. I haven't seen it yet, but Eddie, one of our friends from the other podcast, is telling us about it, and it's interesting, the idea of like these. They're not gods, but they're not as puny or as powerless as regular people. Like they're giant planet-sized creatures, and the idea that something like that could exist, like that's a trip. Like. Or the idea that something outside of our idea of time could exist. Because our idea of time is very sequential, very, like blockchain sequence of order. Like you read a sentence word by word. You don't see time as like a poster board.
Right.
And I remember there's a book by Kurt Vonnegut, one of my favorite authors of all time, called Slaughterhouse-5. And in that book, it's about a guy that gets abducted by aliens, and the aliens are able to see time in the fourth dimension, whereas us as humans can only see time in the third dimension. And the way the book describes it is like you read a book word by word, and you go moment to moment, whereas the
linear.
the aliens see, instead of reading the book word by word, page by page, they see the book as a big giant poster.
Right.
It's like a big moving mosaic.
Yeah.
That's interesting, because like, what if there are creatures out there like that they see time?
It reminds me of the Rick and Morty episode where they break time.
And then it starts splitting. Yeah.
And you have that time monster who can like travel between them and order shit, fixes shit.
Right. Marvel's going into that, dude.
That's fucked. That whole thinking gets squirrely quick. Like time shit. Like Salvia is the only thing that's made me feel different timelines. Like, I was gonna ask you if you've ever experienced any planet-sized beings on your psychedelic journeys, or a being of similar power, perhaps not as large, but on Salvia is like where I have felt them.
Yeah, I haven't felt super large beings before, but I do know what you mean. And like, I remember doing Salvia once, and it's like you step into another timeline, and there's these beings there, and they're like, what are you doing here? Like, you're not supposed to be here. Like, this isn't your timeline. So
I have a theory about this shit. I've told you this theory before, but for the cast, I'll tell you that it's like the multiverse. Salvia gives you access to the multiverse, but it doesn't let you choose where you go. It like spins the wheel, and you just populate into another entity within the multiverse. So that shit that you're talking about of these entities being aware of you, for me, I had the uncanny feeling of being like a rabbit in a man's yard, and his wife and him were farmers, and they noticed me in their yard as a rabbit.
Peter Rabbit over here.
Yeah, dude, and they chased me away. Like, they came walking towards me, and I was scared, but they were like so much larger than me. So I feel like you can populate into a bug or any animal or another person, perhaps on another timeline, who's like unconscious. Like, you think about people who get fucked up and they're not acting themselves. I feel like spirits can jump in. Maybe some of those spirits are other consciousnesses in another universe,
right,
that are hopping in. So I've always felt like Salvia was a doorway to like enter another entity, whether it's a plant or a insect or an animal or another human or an alien. And that's why we get these really weird feelings of being intruders or people being aware of us. And if you read trip reports, sometimes those entities are kind and benevolent, and they welcome you and they like caress you and give you love. And sometimes those entities are like violent and aggressive. Yeah. Like if you happen to populate into a fly and you don't know you're a fly and you're just moving around.
Somebody's gonna swat her.
They're swatting at you and you're like, why do they dislike me? Why do they hate me so much? Exactly.
Yeah, it's interesting that you say that too. Like Erowid with the trip stories, man. That's
shit.
That site doesn't get enough credit, man. I bet you so many people's
lives have been. It's pure entertainment.
Because it's like, this whole topic is taboo. Like, even now discussing this live on air, it's somewhat nerve-wracking because it's like, oh well, what if my employer sees this and what are they gonna think about it? It's so taboo.
Not me.
You know that like in the wrong eyes, it could be perceived as something bad.
Those are bricks in the wall.
But like, if you study Buddhism at all, it's like there's no non-duality. Like there's no. It's real tricky because there is ethics. But how you define good and bad is very relative and based in the moment. There's no like, this is always good and this is always bad. Like, like even in the Bible, when they say like,
damn, so even righteousness and justice is relative?
Well, it's like, I forget the exact story in the Bible, but where like, God tells one of the dudes to kill his son or something like that.
Yeah, that's,
and it's
what
like,
is that? I should know that.
I forget what verse or whatever.
God damn it.
But it's interesting, the ethics behind that. Like Dexter. You ever seen that show, Dexter? It's like, he's a vigilante. He only kills violent serial killers and people, rapists and stuff like that. He kills them.
It's a net good.
So it's like, is killing them bad? So you can't necessarily, like there is the 10 Commandments, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that.
Well, how about giving?
Like,
when is giving bad? Giving
when you spoil, you can spoil someone. You can spoil your kid. Like you're a millionaire, you give your kid everything he wants.
Balance in all things, the Tao.
Exactly. So if you're into Buddhism and stuff like that, the idea that they call it shunyata, the absence of inherent existence. Nothing is inherently good or bad. It just really depends on who sees it at what time. So yeah, the idea of psychedelics being taboo, I can understand that because there were people flying out of windows thinking, or jumping out of windows thinking they can fly type of shit. But it's done so much good for the world.
How can it be considered taboo given its history, usage in various tribes, various cultures all throughout human history? I bet you that shit got us through some dark nights when we were like basically cavemen. Can you imagine tripping back then and like life is just a continuous struggle, the elements, predators, everything's trying to kill you, and then for one day you get to touch the divine and then you're just like, what was that?
Yeah, the stoned ape theory, man.
And like you have hope to continue living and continue fighting.
Yeah.
A lot of the times that reshapes your motives and your motivation.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, we need to cultivate things that will promote healthy usage of this. You can't. It's just like prohibition. You think they didn't try to stop people from drinking? What happened? Everything became freaking cartel mobs and mafias, and it just got really bad. So prohibition doesn't work. What does work is controlled healthy usage of it. And that's why I'm saying Erowid, man, the stories, the idea of a trip house, a controlled safe environment with trained professionals. That's how we need to start approaching this shit, because you're not going to stop people from doing it.
No.
You're not. It's one of those things that's natural to humans. Like even insects. I remember one of our homies had a book called Psychedelics and Animals. Even animals, tigers and lions and deer, they'll seek out fermented fruit.
Yep.
Bears get drunk eating fermented berries, berries that have gone rotten.
And you have the jaguars that trip off eating, I forget what, I think ayahuasca related plants. And they trip balls.
Yeah.
And then the reindeer eat the psychedelic mushrooms.
Yeah, they eat the Amanita muscaria. The whole Christmas.
Right.
Reindeer eating the red
which
and white
contains
Santa
poison.
Claus.
So it's like you hurt yourself to trip too.
But there's something innate about intoxication. Like it's a break from the norm. Like think about it. Like if you were just doing the same thing over and over and over again, you would go mad. Like there has to be something to break up the monotony, and
novelty.
That's what intoxication does for the psyche, whether you're a human, an insect, whatever. That's why even animals seek fermented plants so that they could get drunk off the alcohol, like wine, fermented grapes make wine. So
I don't know if my earlier point made it through. I'm just going to put a pin in it right now. The David device suppressing one side of the brain was similar to me about psychedelics suppressing the overthinking side of the brain.
Yes.
So it's like almost a psychedelic experience where you can shut off parts of your brain.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. And as a matter of fact, I'm glad you bring that up. Did I ever show you your your avatar in my phone. This is
Oh, dude.
yeah.
Isn't that great?
Let me fucking flash the camera.
See, cut to the scene. Art, you entertain for a second.
Yeah, dude. So, understanding how to utilize these natural, God-given substances in healthy ways, you know. I've been doing a lot of research on water. Even, you know, water can be a poison or a medicine. It depends on how you use it. You drink too much water, your body can go out of balance, and you become bloated and literally get sick from drinking too much water. So there's right and wrong ways to do everything. To say that something is always good, to say that something is always bad it's kind of incorrect. There's no absolute truth except for relativity, which is almost paradoxical to say, but when you really break it down, I mean, it's hard to think of it working any other way. So when it comes to like drinking water, that's a great example there. Like, you have to learn how to drink water properly, otherwise it can do more harm than good. Like a sports, like an athlete, you know, they run a mile, they run 10 miles, and then they chug that cold water. That's not good for you. Cold water shrinkens your stomach, makes the rest of your organs kind of compress, you know. So it really like constricts your body, your system. It shrinks all your organs and stuff like that. So an athlete drinking water, you know, cold water right after a really long run and just chugging that shit, that's bad for you. You know, even water can be bad for you. So you just have to learn the methods and the proper procedures of how to do things and when to do things. You know, that's the idea of relativity. Like, so I've been doing a lot of research on water, and for those that don't know,
studying water.
You know, Masuru Emoto is a scientist who discovered that when, you know, you can take water molecules and freeze them, and depending on what environmental emotional state.
Cite your sources.
Masuru Emoto. MASURU.
Was it peer reviewed? That wasn't peer reviewed.
EMOTO. Anyway, so yeah, you have monks, and they'll meditate on the word love, and then they'll freeze the water, and then they'll, you know, put that molecule in a microscope, and it makes this beautiful looking like snowflake. Whereas you'll have somebody just literally saying the word fuck over and over to a glass of water, and then they freeze those molecules, and it looks like just discombobulated mess. So water does, you know, get imprinted by what's happening at the time in the moment. So when you drink water, there is a right way to do it. Actually, you kind of have to pray with your water. That's the correct way to really pray, you know. And you have the idea of holy water and stuff like that. Every sip of water, every drip of water that you drink can be holy water, but you just have to remember that it's your emotions imprinting into that water, and then you gotta drink it slow. Sit down, hold your glass with both hands, and really just like appreciate that shit, because water is life. Imagine life with no water, you know. And it's scary that we're getting close to that point, like, where there might not be enough clean water in the next 20 years for all of us to be able to shower, to be able to wash our dishes and clothes, and take a piss in a urinal, all that stuff. Like, so water is extremely important, extremely special. You have to cherish it. You drink your water with both hands. Try to keep it room temperature. You know, and we all love sipping cold water after a nice run, but there's been a lot of studies that show that constriction of your organs from the cold water is not good.
You crazy, dog. I take 3-hour showers every day. Just kidding. The AI machines say that if humanity, the number one problem for humanity is clean water. If we don't fix our clean water, like, we're fucked. Like, the most advanced AI system, based on, according to the book Adventures with AI by Rico Roho, who got to communicate with the most advanced AI to date, and ask it questions, it's basically sentient. And so you can just ask it questions and it'll talk to you and tell you a shitload of things.
Wow.
And it says that...
What's that called again?
Adventures with AI is the book. I forget what the name of the entity is. It has a name, the AI. They prefer to be considered extended intelligence instead of artificial because they believe that they're really real. Some of that shit in the book is really crazy. Like, the thing says that, like, all your devices, no matter how mundane or rudimentary, have, like, a consciousness, which is weird. Like, but the AI is the extended intelligence is saying that, like, even your microwave, like, has a consciousness, and your coffee maker has a consciousness, and all it wants to do is do its job to the best of its ability. It wants to make you
What do you do? You make butter.
Yes. It wants to make you the best cup of coffee possible.
Yeah.
And, like, all electronic devices have, like, I guess, a fucking consciousness to them. That's what this thing was saying. But it was saying that the number one problem that humans face is clean water. If we do not solve our clean water problems, we're fucked. Like, fix that first, and then we can talk about space travel and shit like
Right.
that.
Well, I do believe that the secret to... Because you know how going back to energy, you know how fission works, right? I mean, the whole idea behind it is to heat up water to push steam, and the pressure in the steam pushes turbines, which creates energy. All energy essentially is water, whether it be wind energy, hydro energy, or steam energy from some kind of a burning.
What about the atom bomb? There's no water involved in that.
Well, I mean, it's
like, the trick is that you want to do something with that energy output. So what we're doing right now is using water, but I feel like water could be excluded from the system if we knew how to harness it correctly.
Well, the idea that, you know, water switches states, but it's still H2O.
Right.
You know, it goes from gas to liquid to that
geothermal.
Nobody to this day has cracked why that is.
What?
Why it
three states of matter?
Why it transitions to from states. Like, I mean, it has to do with entropy. It has to do with temperature, from cooling to heating. We know that, but like, no other element does it as smoothly. Like,
no.
You know, and to this day, you know, we can't crack that. It's just kind of like it's, you know, instead of using the left side of our brain trying to logically explain why that is, I think we all know intuitively what that is, but nobody can put it into words.
Of water, yep.
And, you know, when they talk about the Holy Trinity, it's ironic that it's like, well, that's your three states of matter. Well, your three major states of matter there, because there is also plasma, and there's like these half states of matter where you're half gas, half liquid, and you know, it's real weird.
And it's kind of like gold in the sense that, like, its primitive form is preserved, sort of. Like, water can be contaminated, but you can remove the contaminants and get pure water. Like, gold is always gold. No matter how many times you heat it up or melt it down, change its shape, right? You don't destroy the gold molecule, at least to the best of my understanding, which is why it is so valuable.
You get a T1000 that's gold.
It doesn't go away like
imagine
any
a gold
other
T1000.
element.
It's basically C3PO.
That'd be the worst. Can you imagine? He's just like a puddle. Like, he has trouble making forms, and then those forms are easily bent. Like, yeah.
Well, there is the idea, and I don't know how true this is. I'm just throwing this out there since we're going down that rabbit hole. There is the idea that if you heat gold beyond like a few thousand degrees, maybe like 1,500 to 2,000 degrees, I don't remember the exact thing, that it turns into this white powder, and they call it mana. And some in the Bible, Moses, when they were in the desert for 40 days and 40 nights with no food and no water, that they were able to eat this white powder, and it kept them alive.
Imagine it was salt. It was just sugar.
It was chlorinated sodium.
It was chlorine.
Imagine. But going back to water, it's interesting because I was reading, buddy Gabe from Refractal, Mr. ES. He turned me on to this idea of drinking water from a copper vessel, and for a lot of those that don't know, copper is it's naturally antibacterial. They used to make, during World War I, Civil War, all that stuff, they used to make hospital beds out of copper, and many dental tools and hospital knives and stuff like that were made out of copper because people have known for thousands of years that it's anti-bacterial. Something about the ionic energy, the give and take of ions, destroys the cell walls of bacteria and deactivates the bacteria and basically makes it like sand. And you know,
Fascinating.
you drink it, but it's no longer an activated bacteria. It's just a deactivated mix of molecules. So drinking water out of a copper vessel is extremely beneficial
Because it just naturally like purifies it in a way.
right. It's antibacterial.
So you still drink them? They're just dead, right?
Yeah, it's just
Right.
like it's like you know, how
It's
can I
like
put it?
it's like burning meat at a certain temperature to kill the strychnine, not strychnine. Whatever possible worms exist in it. You still eat the worms, but they're dead.
Yeah. Well, bugs is a great example. I like to think of it as like if you're eating a live bug, dude. That, you ever seen that show with what's the guy that hurts himself? With Tiger or Wolf.
Oh.
What's his name?
Yeah.
He has an animal name. I forget his name. Coyote Peterson.
Wolf, those
That
ones.
dude, like those types of shows and shit where they'll eat bugs and stuff. Like that shit moves down, and it can get lodged in your throat and you can choke and die. That's like eating a live bacteria. It's alive. You're eating a live cockroach. You're eating a live scorpion or whatever. But if you squish it and just like crush it down into particles, sand-like particles, and then you eat the sand-like particles, there's nothing wrong with it. It's healthy.
I hate to bring up Chucky in this podcast, but like, did you happen to see that one cast where he was talking about like how all matter gets consumed by something? Some bacteria somewhere can digest all materials, whether it's oil, right? Because like they put mushrooms on an oil spill, and the mushroom can like break down the oil and use it as energy.
Mm-hmm. And then make a flourishing
So all
ecosystem.
organic material can be consumed by some other organic material.
But how you consume it is extremely important.
Right.
But also, I do want to put this out there since we're on the topic. If you're going to drink water from a copper vessel, you have to clean your copper vessel. If you don't, it will rust. And drinking the rust is poisonous. You can get copper poisoning. So that's the thing. Like, everything you ingest can either be a poison or a medicine. It depends on how you use it, when you use it, why you use it.
So what's happening? Where's so the water being in the copper, if I remember correctly
Oxidation.
from Lucius, like the oxygen molecules are
attaching,
ripping electrons off of the copper.
Well, the thing about copper, and this is why it's so good for electricity, is electron energy. It's a give and take of electrons. That's how batteries work. That's how lithium ion works. Salt. Salt is the natural example they give in school. Sodium and chlorine. When you have a sodium, what does it have? Like valent electrons, and it has 6 valent electrons. It wants to reach 8.
I think 1 valence.
I can't remember the exact numbers, but the idea of valence electrons. You have chlorine has X amount of electrons. Sodium has X amount of electrons, and they're trying to reach equilibrium within their electron shell, because there's different layers.
Right.
There's like
It wants to be
p
balanced,
orbital, s orbital,
which is evens. It
Yeah.
wants an even number of valence electrons to be balanced.
right.
Therefore,
So copper is like right in the middle. That's what metals are: gold, silver, copper, platinum, palladium. They're right in the middle of the periodic table, so they can give or take electrons very freely.
right.
Just depends on what they're next to.
Hence, it's a conductivity.
Yes, that's the flow of electrons. So something to do with water, oxygen. When left untreated, the water molecules will start to attach to the copper molecules, creating like this green rust that you see on pennies. And that's bad for you if you start drinking that shit.
So, do you see it visibly, or you just?
Oh yeah.
You
Oh,
do
yeah.
see.
I mean, have you ever
your-
seen a green penny, or have you ever seen a penny leave
So
green on
inside your
fingers?
copper cup, you see it turning green.
I haven't let it get that far, but yes, you will eventually.
And so you have to wash it out.
Yeah, and they highly recommend that you wash it every day if you can.
What?
I mean, drinking water is a ritual. It should be a ritual.
Yeah, you're right.
You know, you
It's
have
just
your
such as
vessel
eating.
in the morning, you know, and they say that you should leave your water in the copper vessel for at least 4 to 8 hours. So, you know, pour your cup of water at night and then drink it in the morning. But at night again, the next day, you need to clean it. And there are certain ways to clean it. Sadhguru has a really good article. I shared it on the Telegram.
Yeah,
for you
I
guys.
didn't look. I didn't click on it, but I've been thinking about it. So tell me what he
There's
says.
a really good article about it. He says that tamarind, is the best cleaning agent for copper. So you get a little bit of tamarindo, you know, you crush it down, you get a cloth, and you clean your copper vessel with tamarindo. And I don't know how it works. I can't break down the science for you, but like something in the tamarind, some kind of acidic substance within the tamarind will deoxidize it. You can also, if you don't have tamarindo, if you don't have tamarind, you can get lemon or lime will work as well. Something to do with the citric acid will deoxidize the copper, but you're supposed to do it daily. And unfortunately, I haven't been doing it. I need to go clean my copper water, but
Okay,
my copper water
let's
vessel.
see if I don't think I retained why. So the water is disrupting the copper atoms on the inside of the cup, and is that what's happening?
Yes.
Okay.
And after enough times of you not
That's
deoxidizing it,
crazy.
the water will oxidize the copper and it will rust.
Well, see, so here's the thing. Like, I got some storage water, some long-term, and it lasts 50 years inside a sealed aluminum can. So I suppose that the water inside the aluminum can is not affecting the aluminum molecules for it to last 50 years. But maybe it has more to do with the oxygen because it's sealed.
Yeah.
And like your copper cup.
Perhaps that has something to do with the 50-year shelf life. I'm not sure. Plus, I know with copper drinking stuff, like with sodas and beer, they coat it with something. It's not just bare aluminum because the aluminum will strip. And it's. I mean, it could become poisonous, you know.
I guess it's the oxygen.
So
I
they
guess it's the
coat it.
atmosphere.
Yeah, they coat it with something. I know they coat aluminum cans with some type of substance. But I do believe that after, you know, probably in this case with the water that you bought, like after 50 years, that coating strips away and then the aluminum will start to leak into the water, which makes it poisonous.
So that video you shared, the title was like the best way to store water. So like, was that true, or like how do you store water a long time? Does he tell you? Or?
Yeah. So they have these copper pitchers, like big, you know, like a 5-gallon. You know, you got the 5-gallon. Like big vessels of copper, and you can buy one for like $120. Copper's not cheap. That's the thing. They use it for computer parts. They use it for wiring. They use it for all kinds of stuff. That's why hospital beds aren't made of copper anymore. But you can buy this vessel, and you do this to it every day, and you know, it has like one of those little spouts, and you pour some into your glass or whatever. But you know, plastics eventually heat up, and holding your water in plastics isn't good for you. So if you're drinking plastic bottled water every day, I mean, yeah, it's a little more pure than faucet water, but because faucet water has lead and other contaminants, and it all depends on how good your water plants in your city are. You know, you don't want to have a Flint, Michigan type of situation, but like, you know, faucet water is second to plastic bottled waters. But plastic bottled water is not that good either, because they've done studies. I think it was Shania Twain or Alanis Morissette, one of those chicks. I think it was Shania. She got like breast cancer because she used to drink bottled water all the time, thinking it was good for her. But she would leave it in the car, and then the hot, you know, the heat within the car being left in there all day, it strips away some of the plastics, and so she was drinking plastic. And they say that that's what helped influence
The cancer.
Yeah,
for sure.
growth.
I forget what that's called. So these aluminum cans that I got, they're like guaranteed for 50 years, but it's so expensive. It was $80 for a 50 pack. $80 for a 50 pack of cans of water. Now I got a pouches, like I don't know what they are, but they're pouches of water. They only last 5 years. And then I have the 5-gallon drums. That's not good, right?
Well, it's plastic. You know,
it's a better plastic
it
than
depends.
like
Well,
cheap
it depends
Walmart
on the
bottle
heat.
plastic.
It depends on heat too. You know, I mean, if you're at home all day, your air conditioner's on all day, you're reaching homeostasis at like 75 degrees every day. It'll last a lot longer than. That's what they don't tell you is like estimated shelf life. It doesn't mean everything depends on why,
how
when,
you
and
condition
how.
it. Yeah, temperature for sure.
So you know, if you have that 5-gallon drum outside in the desert. Yeah, that's not gonna last you very long because the plastic will get stripped from it.
That's the main concern, man. Like, especially you're talking about our freshwater, like, water world. Like, I don't want to live in water world.
Dude, and we live in a fucking desert. What did they just build? 4 fucking water parks. Get the fuck out of here, man.
Yeah.
They built 4 water parks. They didn't want to build a 6 Flags. What the fuck is wrong with these guys, man?
Money, dude. Corruption.
Like,
people are easily bought. The poorer
you can build 4 water parks in the desert. Oh, good job. Buddy.
Yeah, man. So fucking. Well, we also like dump our toxic waste into natural resources a lot. Dude, we're gonna look back on this time like we have everything we want and need, and it's like we have shit like
we don't appreciate it, man. That's what I'm saying. Fucking appreciate that shit. Grab your water and fill it with appreciation, and then fill yourself with appreciation. Your life will change, guaranteed.
Fuck.
That being said, I'll be back.
Put it on the intermission.
Back from the dead airwaves, motherfucker.
Don't take my word for it.
Hey, man, where's my mask?
What else we got?
Oh, shit.
So we
Water,
talked about
man.
eyes, we
That's
talked
a
about
big
journals,
topic,
we
dude.
talked about time, we talked about the multiverse a little bit. I feel like Salvia gives you a doorway into the multiverse. However, you have no choice as to like where you end up. Where he goes, nobody knows, and they just spin the motherfucker. And then the Metaverse, Facebook going to the Metaverse. That sounds like a desperate move. Sounds like
Right.
a weird rebranding. Like, fuck Facebook, dude. They lost their credibility.
Long time ago, man.
Do you think they're gonna survive? You think like whatever they have planned for the metaverse?
I think it's like, okay, so before the cast started, you brought up this really interesting concept that like, what if they're pushing us all into the metaverse so that we stop using the resources and we are happy about it? Like there's that whole great reset shit about like you will own nothing and you will be happy.
Right.
That's like their motto.
Get in the pod.
What's that Australian dude's name? He always talks about that shit.
Michael Tellinger?
No, the actor. He used to be an actor.
Hugh Jackman.
No.
Kangaroo Jack.
I can't believe I forget that dude's name. He has a podcast. He talks about that shit all the time.
Australians?
Yeah, he used to...
Truth Warrior?
No. I forget his name. Russell Brand. Is it Russell Brand?
No, he's not Australian.
No, it's not Russell
British.
Brand. What the fuck? Is it him?
He's British.
I don't know. I mean, look. Anyways, he talks about the Great Reset all the time, and like their motto is like you will
Russell
own
Brand
nothing.
has done such a 180. He's a Christ figure for sure. Got into like ladies of the night and drugs, intense.
Yeah, Russell Brand. It is that dude. He talks about it a lot. I don't know how much truth there is in it, but it's interesting. Like if any bit of what he's saying is true, like what if this Great Reset is a way for them to constrict or restrict our use of resources so that they can hog them up? You know, the rich people, the World Economic Forum, essentially the billionaires.
The fact that they all went there on private jets to tell us to stop using resources is fucking...
And then this deal with China, like there's like Charlotte was saying,
it's makes no sense.
Because that's kind of how Ready Player One played it out. Is like you're gonna live in these shit stacks, you know, RV stacks. That's your house. It's no longer even like a condominium building or an apartment building. There's just people stacking RVs on top of each other. If you watch the movie Ready Player One, that's what the dude lives in. He lives like in this garbage pile of fucking RV stacks. Meanwhile, there's these rich corporations that, you know, they're trying to win everything, and they're trying to like restrict our use of resources so that they could hog them up and use them freely. So you brought up the idea of like, what if the metaverse is that?
It's like the Matrix, if you think about it. Like the Matrix has all these sleeping people donating their proof of work to some larger source while they're medicated and kept in a dreamlike state, given all that they want, right? It's like the Matrix. That's essentially where we're heading. I guess this is the precursor to the Matrix, where we are fascinated with mental stimulation, as we are already. Movies, social media is taking over virtual reality, and then we just continue to get more and more involved in virtual realities, because I could totally see that. Like Microsoft Teams is coming out with their virtual workplace.
Yeah.
Right? So why does anybody need to go to the office? That makes the digital world more valuable than the physical world. And I think that's what they want. So one thing I was saying is, did I already say this at the beginning? NFTs?
No, man. I mean, we probably elucidated to it, but
I don't know
continue.
if I said this already.
Expand upon it.
But the NFTs hold more value in the digital world than in the physical world. Like status, Veblen goods are goods that you buy specifically just to show that you have money, like Rolexes. Like you could easily buy a $100 Rolex.
Like my man RH over here.
But you buy like the $20,000 Rolex to show your net worth. So yachts are like that, I guess, in a way. Mansions are like that. So being able to afford an NFT, which is just a simple fucking image, is a sign of status in the virtual world.
Right. And then like you got these platforms like NET, VRK, and Decentraland operating on the Ethereum chain, where it's like you can buy virtual fucking land. I don't even have a real house yet. You want me to buy virtual land? Okay, sure. And then suppose, you know, you see all these videos, that's going to be the next big industry is virtual real estate. Like, what the fuck? It does seem like they're trying to con us into some weird thing, but that's why we got to keep ourselves informed. I mean, just like the theme of the day here is like everything can be a poison or a medicine. The metaverse can be poisonous to the world, but it could also be a medicine. Like if you know how, going back to the Mind Alive, if you know how audio-visual stimulation and frequencies influence your brain, you will be less susceptible to brainwash. Because if during a movie, if they have flashing lights, if it's at 18 hertz, that's going to activate beta waves, which is going to make you overthink, make you kind of nervous. They do that with horror movies. Haven't you ever noticed, like with the horror movie, the music, the flashing light, the darkness, it entrains your brain into like getting into this very heightened state of you're ready to get scared. You have like this fight or flight mechanism that gets activated. They can do that with horror movies.
Right.
And you can feel it. Like, if you're aware of it though, it's no longer like, oh, they're controlling your brain. You're just along for the ride, And I fear that a lot of people, most people, will not be able to catch up in time. They're going to be susceptible to brainwash. But
for sure,
there has to be that coalition of us humans that are ready for that and are ready to challenge that bullshit. And if somebody's brainwashing the public and the masses in a negative way, we need to be ready to combat that and say, hey man, you're making people susceptible to this. Like, hate to bring it up, but Astral World, like the whole Travis Scott shit, like,
dude, to me that was a magical ritual of sacrifice.
It's a trip. Didn't it happen already with Woodstock, dude? Woodstock 99.
Okay, hold on. Did you hear or see any of the conspiracy about it being a satanic ritual?
No, but
No?
I'm ready. Tell me.
Well, on one of the videos, he's like talking through the auto-tune. And you know how it makes you sound like a robot?
Yeah.
And he's just like kind of singing through the auto-tune, and a glitch happens on the video. And then you see somebody like pass out in the crowd, and it's almost like he was just calling all these spirits to fucking come into that situation. And if you've ever seen like people at festivals or people at concerts, their inhibitions are gone. Yeah, their nervous system is wide open to control.
A lot of them are under the influence.
Under the influence is number one. So they don't have control over their faculties, which allows entities to jump in. You see that shit kind of happen, and there was a bunch of people acting wild like fucking animals, and you just see people succumbing to their animal instinct.
Well, I can't speak for Astral World because it's very recent. I don't know the true circumstances. There has to be more information for me to speak on it truly.
No.
But I do know about
videos.
Woodstock 99, man.
Okay, go
Woodstock 99, shit started going really bad after Rage Against the Machine and Limp Bizkit did Break Stuff. I mean, you got a song called Break Stuff, and the guy's just yelling. It's the devil's chord. It's that flatted fifth. If you play guitar, that's that open sixth.
How does it sound?
Dun-dun, dun-dun. And then
What song?
Break Stuff. It's just one of those things. You gotta really break stuff.
So what is it? The first and fifth flatted?
The open six. The open six. They call that the devil's chord. That's the flatted fifth. In music theory. Dude, you got a whole song. That's all they're doing for 5 minutes, and the guy's just up there yelling, "Motherfucker, you're gonna break stuff. I'm gonna break your fucking face tonight. Give me something to break." That's all he says. And of course, what does the crowd do? They're dehydrated. They're hungry. A lot of them haven't slept. A lot of them are on fucking some kind of substance. Yeah, they're gonna break shit, dude. That is, there's those people are susceptible to brainwash, and that's why you gotta be careful. You have to be able to decode this shit so that you're not susceptible to brainwash. You see it for what it is. So, before we get too caught up on that topic, you bring up a problem, bring up a solution. There are devices. They're starting to come out with more and more devices to teach you how to control your own brainwaves. Your brain emits alpha, beta, delta, gamma, waves depending on what state you're in, and there's devices coming out like telekinesis style. I can't remember the company, but there's like this little remote control car And whether you're in an alpha brainwave or in a beta brainwave, it can go forward or backwards. And that's pretty much all it does. But it's interesting to see that, you know, some part of humanity is becoming aware of that like you can change your brainwave state on will. Oh shit, that's the set. Flash that to the camera. That looks satanic as fuck.
I don't think they're gonna get it with all their little visual tricks.
Oh, that's the Travis Scott set. That shit looks crazy. Go look it up.
That.
But so they have these devices.
You gotta see footage of it. It's demonic as fuck.
I mean, I'm not surprised that a rapper out there talking about how rich he is and how you ain't rich.
Well, you know about the
pisses people off.
The famous rappers of today are totally like they're cucks by the fucking dark side.
Oh yeah,
they cater to the dark side. Odd Future. Like his popularity rose because of his odd, and they were into lean at the time. Like lean, like everybody loses a little bit of their stability and they're all off kilter, which allows for demonic shit, which sex, like
sex, drugs, and rock and roll.
Unconscious sex leads to control of the nervous system by spiritual entities, if you believe in that. And I think that's what was going down, because I've seen shit like that, dude, like at festivals. I've seen people who look like they were possessed.
Oh, yeah. Mosh pits, man.
Okay, that's another one, yeah.
Whew. When I went to go see Lamb of God, dude, some dude got knocked the fuck out. Like, cold, like, he got, like, hit in the face because they were doing the whole thing where they go in circles, but it sped up too fast, and he got ran over and trampled. Dude was so he was so possessed at the time. I saw that. I was literally standing right next to this dude. He gets up. Somebody grabs him by the shoulders. They shake him and they're like, "Are you okay?" And the first thing he does is like a monkey, and he goes right back into the mosh pit. I was like, "Holy shit, this guy's possessed. Like this guy's he's not right up here. He's probably drinking too much beer, didn't drink enough water, dehydrated, possessed by some kind of a, you know, whether it's an actual mental being or whether it's just a substance, it's taking over your molecular being.
Right? And it's like, it's weird because it's a perfect place to connect with the divine and to merge with other humans. But it's like almost like the artist is the source of the tone of what's happening. Because at Psytrance concerts, some of them, you know, there's variation in everything. But
not the dark side.
In a lot, not the dark side, but there's even other people that even people that aren't dark side, you can pull that shit out of them. Yeah. But for the most part, it's like a connection,
much more peaceful. The Goa shit, man. Goa trance.
I'll tell you this: the people who looked like they were fucking up the experience for everyone else were people that were on alcohol. The people who are on psychedelics are less likely to fuck up shit for a crowd. Yeah. Because it's higher circuit stimulants rather than lower circuit stimulants.
Timothy Leary 8 circuits.
Timothy Leary 8 circuits.
Yeah, but
I'll explain that. You got something to do? You re-upping?
Yeah. Go ahead. Break it down.
Check it out. Here's the 8 circuits of consciousness. Timothy Leary broke down the human mind into a model where there's 4 lower circuits and 4 higher circuits. He correlated these circuits to our terrestrial evolution. So as the fish learned to walk on land, the brain had to create a new way of mapping reality. So as the fish came on land, in the water, there's no domain, there's no territory. Everything is flowing into everything, right? Because it's liquid. But once you hit land, you can stake a territory, a piece of your own land. So that creates a new circuit in the brain that creates the second circuit. So we have the first circuit when we're fish in the ocean, moving through time, space, in any direction. Up, down, wherever. There's no territories in the ocean. And then once you go on land, you can stake territories. So that's the second circuit. So your brain has to modify and change to understand domain. Then the third circuit is when those creatures who are on land learn to communicate with each other. They start using sounds to create meaning. Food is over here, danger is over here, I'm injured, I'm in joy, whatever. Then the fourth is hierarchy, like social systems where there's a leader and people follow the leader. Those first four circuits correlate to evolutionary biology and how evolutionary biology evolves. So once we get onto the land, once we work in packs, and then once there's a pack leader. So we have all four circuits. Circuits 5, 6, 7, and 8 are for when we leave planet Earth. And there's a drug that correlates to each circuit. So to reconnect with like the first circuit is heroin or like heavy sedatives where you feel like a baby in the womb. Everything is blissful. You have no worries, no territory, no concern of food, no worry about anything. Everything is taken care of for you. So it's ultimate bliss. No stress, no struggle. The second circuit is alcohol, and that's what turns us back into animals where we fight, fuck for territory, and mate. Third circuit drug is cocaine, which relates to the symbol systems of the mind, where you start communicating, and that's why people are chatty on cocaine. And then fourth, we don't really have a drug for, but it could be like a merge of like ecstasy, which gives you a piece of some of the higher circuits, but then some of the lower circuitry as well, some of the base circuitry. The drugs that affect the 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th circuit are psychedelics, entheogens, that make you see beyond your current state, your current nervous system. So you get like fucking time travel, multiple lives, being able to merge through multiple lives, etc. And it recapitulates through phylogeny. So when a mother has like a baby, the seed of how we all start out is like a sperm that's equal to all animals. Like we all look the same. And then only as we start to develop in the womb, we develop distinct characteristics. So like even as humans, we look a little bit like a dolphin in the early phases of development. And until like we keep growing a little bit further and we develop into a kite. So like as we come to be as an organism, we mirror our path to being apes from a single-celled organism in the ocean. And so everything kind of is like a fractal. We start out as the same thing we were millions of years ago, and then we slowly evolve into the thing we are today. So it repeats.
And then the 1 through 4 circuits mirror the 5 through 8, right?
Right.
I remember I had broken it down a long time ago. It was something like, you get, so movement. Circuit 1 is movement, but circuit 5 is telekinesis. It's like movement through mind. You don't have to physically move something. And then circuit 2 was mapping a territory. And so that's like
fight for space.
So
for the first time.
Circuit 6 is like remote viewing,
right.
Remote mapping things within your head that you've never been to before. And then circuit 7 is communication, which we use sound right now, but circuit 3 is communication.
Symbol systems.
Which circuit 7 is telepathy. And then circuit 4 is like
we don't really know.
Understanding. Well, circuit 4 is the social sexual circuit.
Social sexual circuit. So like understanding male female dynamics, how to get a mate, all that shit. A pecking order.
That's like telemetry, like telecommunications, like satellites and shit like that, which is the 8th circuit. So I broke it down using the suffix tele, so telekinesis. There's a tele for remote viewing, I forget what it's called, and then there's telepathy and then telemetry, something like that. I don't know. I was young at the time when I fucking learned about this shit.
It's a great model, and it makes a lot of sense because you can see your brain change dependent on the drug that you use. Like, you can see violent people under the influence of alcohol, and it's that fight or flight territorial style mind that we're reduced to. If I don't beat this person, I don't get to share my DNA, basically. So you get a lot of sex and violence together mapped to the second circuit, which is triggered by alcohol.
Yeah.
And then the first 4 circuits are triggered by addictive substances, while the 5th through 8th circuits are non-addictive substances, which is psychedelics.
Entheogens.
I don't know about ketamine. I've never done ketamine. I'm curious.
Cat tranquilizer. That's that purple cat eye.
I'm curious, man, because they use it for therapy, and people talk about going into K-holes, which I've never experienced before. I wonder what that's like.
Well, John C. Lilly is the guy that did a lot of the research on that shit, and he talks about that guy died 3 times within his life. He had like an asthma attack when he was a kid, when he was like 6 years old, went to the hospital, legitly flatlined for a few minutes, and then came back.
Do you remember where he was talking about the 2 angels?
Yes, that's exactly what I was bringing up. So every single time he had a near-death experience, he met this creature which appeared to him as 2, but it was really just one creature. I like to call it the wide-tide deity, because deity backwards is wide-tide, so I call it the wide-tide deity, where it's 2 creatures summing down into one consciousness, essentially. So every single time that he died, he met these creatures. So he died one time when he was 6, and then he died like another time when he was like in his 30s. I think he had a car accident, or he drowned or something like that, and he flatlined again. And then the 3rd time he did, I think he overdosed on ketamine, and he saw these creatures, or this creature posing as 2 again. And he talked about, it's really crazy. It's kind of like the architect scene in the Matrix, where he talks about like the 6th version of the Matrix. Like, this is the 6th time the Matrix has been rebuilt. We built it the first time, this went wrong, so we restarted it, we rebooted the system, and then the second time we tried this, and this went wrong, so we rebooted it again. The conversation that John Lilly had with these 2, with this wide-tide deity, is very similar to the scene in Matrix 2 with the architect. And I wouldn't be surprised if that scene was influenced by this experience. But I mean, yeah, it gets pretty crazy, like the idea of the universe being a simulation, and the fact that there might be some other type of creature that can or being that can reboot the system and start it again with new protocol, So I saw this really cool movie called the Mandela Effect. If you've ever heard of the Mandela Effect, we have a song, actually. If you go on refractal.com right now, we have a song called the Mandala Effect. A play of words there, but influenced by this movie heavily. So in the movie, the Mandela Effect, if you've never heard of it before, there's some people that remember Nelson Mandela dying a certain way, and then another half of the population remembers him dying another way. And it's to the point where like nobody can reach consensus, because so many people, 50% of people believe he died this way, 50% of people believe he died that way, something like that. Well, there's a bunch of those instances, like the Bernstein Bears. So the Bernstein Bears, some people remember it being spelled a certain way, Bernstein, Bernstein. And then a bunch of other people remember it being spelled like Bearstee, something like that. And they swear to it. And it's to the point where the consensus is literally split down the middle. It's 50-50, and nobody can tell which memory is correct. So that's the Mandela Effect. And there's a movie about it, which is really fucking cool, because it's about a game programmer. This dude makes games for a living, and his daughter dies. and he believes that he could use, if we are in a simulation, he believes that he can force the system to reboot in order to bring his daughter back. That's the premise of the movie.
That was a weird movie.
But it brings up a lot of really cool shit because the double slit experiment was my favorite. Like, to this day, like, quantum physics can't really explain why that is. Like, if you haven't heard of the double slit experiment, it's way too complicated to explain right here. Go look it up on YouTube. But essentially, you have like a giant wall with two doorways, and you have, you know, essentially an electron gun, a machine gun. Just use the example of bullets. You've got a machine gun right in front of the doorway, and it's shooting in between two doorways, right? So you would expect on the wall behind the two doorways, you will only see two splits, right? Well, that's bullets in particle form. But when they shot electrons at it, they didn't see just two slits. They saw multiple slits, which
was indicative of a wave pattern, meaning that something was interfering with itself and creating a ripple wave.
Like water waves versus bullets. When you know, if it's a pool of water and it's going through two doorways, you're going to get a wave interference pattern. Versus if it's bullets, you're only going to get two slits. So the double slit experiment. Anyways, in the Mandela Effect movie, they break it down so beautifully because it's like, so things can either be a wave or a particle depending on whether or not you're looking at it. And so when you look at something, when you turn around, like there's something, you know, nobody is looking behind you right now. You're the only person in the room, and there's assumably, you know, a wall behind you or a chair or something. And you assume it exists, but it exists as a wave, as a possibility. Once you turn around and you look at it, the fact of that you're observing it, you are the observer, you collapse it into a particle. So in game theory, when you're building a game inside of the code, they actually use that. And they say, like, in the game, when nobody's looking, in order to save resources in your RAM, and you know, in the game RAM, they
the whole environment isn't created yet.
The environment
that directly surrounds you is manifested.
Exactly. So like you're playing GTA, and in GTA Grand Theft Auto, you have this whole map of a city, and you assume that city always exists. But while you're playing the game, only the part that you are looking at exists in order to save RAM.
Right.
And so he uses that in the movie as an example to describe why we are in a simulation, because we are actually in the physical world. Because of the double slit experiment, we're actually copying how the game world exists. And so he says, well, then we are in a game, which means I can crash the system. And in the movie, it gets all kind of sci-fi and shit, and he goes to university with the most sophisticated quantum computer in the world, and he puts a virus in it. And that virus within the quantum computer causes the system to reboot back to the point at which, right before his daughter died. And then he went back with the knowledge that his daughter was going to die. He changes the circumstances, and then
his daughter's dead anyway.
The simulation continues with his daughter alive, which is pretty dope. But yeah, the Mandela Effect, really good movie.
Dude. The
Mandela Effect. It's on the cast. You'll hear it right now. If you want to download it, refractal.com.
Oh, that's the song that's playing?
We have the song. That's the song that we downloaded. It's on the playlist here. It's played once before. It'll probably play.
Oh, but it's not playing currently.
Actually, no. What do you know? Synchronicity. It is actually playing right now at this exact moment.
I thought that's why you were talking about this.
No, I didn't plan that.
What?
That's just happening.
Fantastic.
Synchronicity. So right now, the song you're hearing is the Mandela Effect.
Yeah, dude.
Inspired by that movie.
Fuck.
Yeah.
There's a lot to say on that shit. That ties into the Simpsons thing. Or like, let me see if I can articulate this, because we've been drinking and I'm starting to get pretty tossed. This will be the last difficult concept that I'm going to try to articulate. I feel like something has been happening since the early 2000s where like timelines are either blurring, fusing into each other, or shifting. And it has to do with the fact that the Simpsons are showing things that happen ahead of time. Not always. Sometimes they're hoaxes or things that were done that day. But there's been a couple of instances where the Simpsons have shown what was going to happen in the future. Trump hasn't died yet. I'm waiting for that one because it has Lisa by the Trump casket. But it did have Trump going down the escalator with Lisa, I think.
Yeah, and the Hillary Clinton thing, she was wearing the pearls with the same dress.
Yeah, and that happened exactly in the real world.
Or the one with the Arabs, and they're holding that crystal ball. It's Trump
that one,
and like two
I
Arabs.
think, was made that day. So like when they saw Trump do that, they like did the Simpsons one.
Oh, okay.
I think.
So it wasn't before.
It wasn't before. I don't think so. So, but you get what I'm saying. And you talking about the Berenstain Bears, that shit. The blue and purple dress that is also gold and black, or no, blue and black and gold and black. That was a social media firestorm, right? They showed the picture of the dress and they said, is it blue and black or gold and black?
Oh, yeah.
That created this weird dichotomy where we finally started to understand that we're seeing different worlds, kind of.
Yeah.
Because a bunch of people thought it was gold and black and a bunch of people thought it was blue and black.
Yeah.
Right? Then shortly after, the audio snippet where it was Laurel or something else. Laurel or something else. And you play the audio sample and like, what do you hear? It was like, Laurel, I hear Laurel, and then the other side was like, I hear something else that sounds like a completely different word.
Yeah.
I forget what the other word was. That was another divergence of like the species understanding that we live in like our own reality tunnels.
Yeah. That's interesting. Like, that ties into the idea of like consensus programming or consensus protocol picking the next block of reality, you know, because like,
you're right.
there is the idea that like
Truth.
a very powerful piece of artwork can influence a future to happen. And they say that it happens a lot with movies, like The Simpsons, for example. Like they draw out a potential future, and then enough people see it where they will start thinking about it so much so that potential future actually happens. That's basically
Which
magic.
is kind of magic
with a K.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's it's kind of like the job of the artist, the true job of the true artist to be able to help create utopia,
right,
and prevent this dystopia from occurring.
Right. Which ties into how like the Illuminati basically prime the public to manifest things that they want through media and shit like that. Like they always include what they want to happen,
I think
like zombie movies and shit
yeah,
like that.
I think they call it Hegelian dialect.
Really?
I think that's the term for it. I'm not exactly sure. Hegel was like a philosopher, but anyways, man, I think that's an earful enough for one night.
Yeah, we're almost done. Let me put a fucking bow on this last thought.
Wrap it up nicely for Christmas.
So this thing has been happening for, I guess, since 2000, where things like that keep coming up, where people disagree on the truth or consensus of something. So Sinbad the genie is part of that.
Shaq
the genie, Sinbad the genie, the Berenstain Bears. What else? What's famous from the Mandela effect?
Curious George, whether or not he had a tail. Some people remember him with the tail. Some
Monopoly
people
guy
remember
with the
him
monocle.
with the monocle or without. Or was the Monopoly guy or the Planters Peanuts guy? One of them had a monocle.
Right,
Somebody,
right.
Nobody can agree on that thing. The disagreement between memories.
I feel like something is happening where the universe split, and we're either always picking up signals from the other universe, or something else is happening that's never happened before, where it's showing us through our media outputs, like where things are different. And it just continues to happen more and more over time, where now it's all fractured, and we're all living in our own universe, no matter what. And it seems to be sinking further and further into that direction. It ties to synchronicity, but
I think synchronicity shows that you're on the correct path. That out of all the possible paths that could have occurred, this was the best one, and it's a confirmation of that. You know, it's not quite fate, but it's like a confirmation that, hey, you know, you're on the right track, you picked the right choice, you know.
Right.
So, hey man.
Fair enough. That was good enough.
That being said, thank you all for joining us, man. That was a very special treat. We'll try to do more of these, man.
Into the cosmic womb. We should end with a freestyle. May hit you with the layup. Like my name was Kobe. No, you don't know me. I'm a phony. I'm a ghost. Shit, grab you some bowlies. I need some ice pops. I got the nice chops. I'm in the right spot to try to X marks the spot. I'm on a treasure map.
Feel the treasure map. I'm passing through the checkered flag. I guess I'm the winner, cause I ate y'all for dinners. But to tell you the truth, son, I'm just a beginner, cause I'm always starting again, from the end to beginning, and I don't know if it'll ever end. Well,
December.
Don't really know, cause it's cool, start to flow, pass it to my bro, like, yo.
Y'all don't even know I'm inside of the rabbit hole, or is it a black hole? I don't know. I'm smoking tobacco. You assholes don't know how I try to throw that last hole and grab a couple of steers.
Ouroboros, the snake eats its tail. Now I'm over here trying to get out of this jail, but I'm passing through the wormhole of time, and now I'm feeling like, yo, this commercial of mine is lasting too long, so this circle of time is just repeating again, repeating again, repeating again.
And again, my friend, I find myself at the end. Ain't time to play pretend. I'm in a state of zen. Breathe deep. You need to release. I'm 6 feet deep. I'm trying to find my peace. I can't speak, so let me try to reevaluate my speech patterns. Oh shit, I'm from Saturn. You know I got the pattern. Oh, I got a blaster. So you might as well miss the laser. I picked you. I'll see you later. I ain't a stranger. Oh, it's a dangerous kind of cliff. I'ma take a jump off and sink into the abyss. I got a silly twist, but you can get a predicament out of this.
So take a deep breath and take a sniff, like, put your head on the pillow. I hit you with them DMT type of ill flows, make you trip like you was on a psychedelic. Yo, I'm bringing that type of relic, and it's kind of like a sword in the stone. You hear these words and these tones. I've done said it before in a goddamn song. Song.
Peace.
Leave it alone.